Hello, my name is Mitchell Whitehead, and I'm here to tell you how the 1966 Texas Western Miners men's basketball team had not only the biggest impact on college basketball, but in basketball as a whole as we know it today. Texas Western College was a public college located in El Paso, Texas. Today it is known as the University of Texas at El Paso. Texas Western College men's basketball team was an independent, meaning they did not compete in a conference such as the SEC, ACC, Southwest Conference, Big 12, or any of the big conferences that we know of today. Texas Western College was integrated in 1955, but many people throughout the 1966 basketball season thought it was an all-black school due to their 7 black players on the roster. The Miners only had one loss on the season and were ranked number 3 in the nation going into the NCAA tournament. Even with these great numbers, they were heavily overlooked due to the fact that their team was relatively unknown. The Miners made a great run through the tournament and ended up making the national championship game where they faced off against the University of Kentucky. This is where the story begins, because for the first time in history, there was an all-black starting 5 against an all-white starting 5 in the national championship game. College basketball had been integrated years before, but there was an unwritten rule that you would only play one black player if you were at home, 2 black players if you were on the road, or 3 black players if you were behind in the game. So even though this was the first time it was an all-black starting 5 against an all-white starting 5 in the national championship game, the racial issue wasn't as big of a deal at the time as it may seem. The Miners weren't dealing with racial slurs being shouted at them, things being thrown at them, or biased referees like Jackie Robinson did when he joined professional baseball. The only racial issue on record during the game was a Kentucky fan waving a Confederate flag in the stands. This allowed the Miners to go out and solely focus on the game and the task at hand of beating basketball powerhouse Kentucky. The Miners battled throughout the game and came out victorious, beating Kentucky 72-65. Even though there was so much news about how an all-black starting 5 beat an all-white starting 5, the impact of the game wasn't realized until decades later. As years and decades passed, the African American participation in basketball steadily grew. As those numbers grew and basketball started to become dominated by African Americans, the 1966 Texas Western Miners story began to have a bigger impact. If you look at professional basketball today, it is dominated by African Americans and players of color. As of 2015, 72% of players in the NBA were African American. The Texas Western Miners were the team to spark this growth. The 1966 NCAA College Basketball National Championship game changed the game of basketball forever. The 1966 Texas Western Miners were the catalyst to allow for young African American boys and girls to dream of growing up and being professional basketball stars. Without the Texas Western Miners, the amount of opportunity in basketball for African American players may not have happened. African American players would have been able to make the NBA, but not necessarily in the vast majority that we have today. Just think, without the Texas Western Miners, we may not have had seen the likes of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, or even the many great players that will come after them. Glory Road is the movie that tells the story of the 1966 Texas Western Miners, but is not only a great movie and story, it is an important piece of basketball history. Without the 1966 Texas Western Miners, who knows what basketball would have looked like today.